You're listening to the Launchcast, the podcast about leadership, business, life, and growth with me, your host, George Andriopoulos.
It's like food for your ears.
At this time, I'm going to ask that you fasten your seatbelts.
Launch sequence.
Launch sequence activated.
Launch sequence activated.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Woo! Hey, everybody! Welcome to the Launchcast. You see that? Goosebumps. Oh, it's a good one today. Episode 117. It's the Thrilla in Manila III. Cordon, Andriopoulos, bringing it to you one more time. I'm not going to say one last time. It's the launch dad himself, George Andriopoulos, bringing you your favorite podcast on the planet in prime time tonight as the beat drops. Into the black hole. Ooh. Tell me that's not your favorite Tell me that's not your favorite podcast theme ever. Who else has a podcast theme like that? Guys, it's a good one today. There he is. The man, the myth, the newly bald legend. My guest tonight. Mr. Marc Cordon. Thank you, my friend, for joining me. I have been like over the moon about this episode, man.
Dude, this one was supposed to go down. We had been waiting to be in the same town to feel the energy, but the fact of the matter is that it's going down now. We have to make things happen. We got to come together as a community, and I mean, I hope everybody watching right now, wherever you are, just sending you love. I'm gonna have to pummel George on his own show today out of love.
Well, let me tell everybody.
Number 2 podcaster. I'm coming for the title today.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Let me tell everybody. The Thrilla in Manilla III. By the way, we're spelling Manila with 2 L's because this guy is as sweet as vanilla, and he's Filipino, and I spelled it wrong last week. So yeah, that's my excuse tonight. Thrilla in Manila III, Part 1. Well, we did our sparring, right, on the Golden Mike Live, and we'll get into that later. We did our sparring on a couple of episodes of the Golden Mike Live. That's where we warmed up to each other. And then
that was a warm-up? I thought that was like full fists flying, bro.
No, not the first 2 episodes, but episode 200 of the Golden Mike. That's where I took a goddamn chair and I broke it over that big melon of yours.
Yeah, that's probably why I had to shave all my hair off, is because it's been in a knot ever since you hit me over my dome, bro. It's all good, man.
And then part two was when I came on the Golden Mike podcast, and you picked me apart psychologically. He's like the game. He's the psychological killer. Time to play the game.
I had my poker face on. I came back. If anyone's been to the Launchcast studio, I mean, gosh darn it. I mean, my show is called The Golden Mike, and there's more golden mics in that studio than I think Fort Knox, man.
That's right. Come on, man. That's how we do it here. That's how we do it. And now it is time. I want to get into it, man. Let me do the brief bio here, as per usual, with my notes. Marc Cordon, MPH, is a positive psychology coach, the co-founder of the Joy Revolution, author of the book Beyond Resilient, The Coach's Guide to Ecstatic Growth. He specializes in transitions, leadership, performance, and well-being. I didn't bring props with me. Well, I did. I brought the one prop.
Yeah, the prop that you had. Oh, my gosh. Come on.
Right here. Have you ever read the book of Launchpad 516? Does it say that I just podcasted your ass? Is that a thing?
I guess you just did. This is the way you're gonna start it, man. I'm gonna be firing back pretty soon.
That's fine with me. I took
Finish
over
the
your
intro.
show. I took over
Finish the
your show.
intro
Feel
like
free.
Finish the intro like a good host would do, so I can drop some knowledge on you, son.
I'm gonna be muting Mark in a second, guys, and take him off the screen. All right, back to it. And well-being, helping people break through to the next level to find greater enjoyment and purpose in their lives, with a focus on misfit entrepreneurs. That's me. Right there. Yeah, misfit entrepreneurs and leaders who march to the beat of their own drum. Marc's coaching empowers people to claim their own joy as they make a difference for others. He has appeared on national television, radio shows, and has delivered not one, not two, but two. two-time TEDx speaker on positive psychology and social justice. There is more, guys, but I want to just get into it. Because we have a lot of stuff to cover tonight. It's going to be this ain't going to be an hour episode. I'm telling you right now. This is prime time. We're going until what's on on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Whatever. That's what you're going to catch. Your Tuesday 10 o'clock show is the next show that you'll be able to watch.
It's all reruns right now. It's all reruns and fear mongering.
Except this. Except the Launchcast.
Except this.
Let's jump in, dude. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
You know the first question. Marc, are you a leader?
Yeah. Hell yeah, I am.
Yeah, man. Talk to me about it. Tell me, what is your definition of a leader?
Yeah. So my definition of a leader hasn't changed over the years. It's essentially the ability for you, one person, to positively affect another person to take action, or to provoke them to plant seeds to think about action in the future. So even if you think about one person influencing another person, leading another person, or you leading yourself through feedback loops, in some way, shape, or form, I think everybody is a leader, and there's certain ownership that we need to take in it. But that's just me waxing right now. To answer your question, yeah, I'm a straight up leader. Yeah. And also at the same time, there's a good time to be a follower. So, for example, I was in I was in Speakers Who Dare 2020, and with what was changing, the best way that I could lead is by following my executive producer and seeing basically seeing where things were going with her and what I could play with as a leader. With that, our medium, our medium changed from being on a stage to being on very upfront in front of people. And when those mediums change, you got to take some leadership and you take some direction, but you got to put some creativity up in there. You need to put some spin, some authenticity. And I think really great leaders, especially at a time like now, can step up and affect the thought or the behavior of another person in a positive way. And I mean, this world is like filled with fear right now, so there's plenty of fucking opportunities right now to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of what drew us to each other after we met at Speakers Who Dare. We'll get into that a little bit more, but I think your definition of a leader really sums up what you and I are about in terms of how we not only craft our own leadership, but we try and build other leaders, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go into my first wrestling reference because WrestleMania was canceled, but I think one of the most real things in the world is professional wrestling. I don't care if you lose fans over this, buddy, because I know you're looking at your numbers. But if you think about it, they're going and performing, but also in real life, there's something called putting another guy over. This is where the older veteran will. Do you know that? You know this, right, George?
Yeah, of course.
This is where the older veteran makes the decision to put the new guy in the limelight. And I think that's what a good leader does. They take themselves out when they know that they can't necessarily be at optimal functioning anymore. And they don't need the limelight. They never did it for the limelight. And they put the other guy over. And the thing is over the past year, my friend, I have to say it before we go and start slamming on each other, you've put me over quite a bit. And I'm so I'm so grateful for that, man. Even up to the night before Speakers Who Dare, you've been talking to me about it. But also at the same time, I hope that I've had the opportunity as a leader to put you over. You didn't have a podcast when we started. And
I was going to say that. I was going to say that.
Okay.
You have absolutely put me over. I mean, that's what this is about. This is, I think, leaders that are, let's call it freeform leaders, right? People that are sort of fluid in terms of their platform and what they're trying to do. I think people like that are always looking. They're always looking to absorb not only content, but they're looking to absorb leadership tactics from other leaders. They're looking to see what affects the audience of other leaders and to see if they can adapt and do those things. And so when I met you, that's kind of something that really had an effect on the way I lead now, is that I've developed a few more platforms than I had before. Yeah, I had my businesses. Yeah, I had my social media. Yeah, I had my public speaking. But going into this whole podcasting world, this whole this video platform via social media was something that I didn't really do much before this. The podcasting, not at all. And now it's a few months later, and I will say that you absolutely had a huge part in putting me over with that and sort of teaching me how much it could affect people in that way. So, it's all love, brother. You know that.
Oh yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I mean, if you just look at the impact that you're having on people, what was that magazine that you were in? It was like
Podcast magazine.
Oh my gosh. Like it's, I think I don't want to be like, look at me, everybody, I'm an exemplar, but I can't help but feel like, it wasn't like, oh, that should have been my podcast that was under the radar. I was like, nah, when you put George over, like he needs to hold that championship belt and run with it, And I think as a coach, that's what I love so much about coaching, is that on a regular basis, I get to create space to put people over and just fucking celebrate with them.
Yeah,
it's
brother.
Amazing to celebrate when they know that they can do it themselves.
Yeah, dude. I love that. I love that. I want to Howard Stern this bitch right now. I want to take you back. We're taking it back. We're taking it back. We're taking it back. We're going to start.
But you're going to make me talk about my penis at some point if you're Howard Sterning it.
You little baby peen. I want to see if there's any action over there. I got my makeshift Fabrizio today over on the side. Any action coming? Yeah. All right, good. Well, all the channels are buzzing from my wife who's in Fabrizio's seat today because Fabrizio is quarantined right now. That motherfucker.
Oh, positive vibes.
That motherfucker. So we're going to take it back, way back, all the way to Ohio, where Cordon was born in Ohio. What city in Ohio were you born?
I'm not going to say
because
it's the password. It's the password.
Oh, stop it.
No,
his password for everything is Cleveland 69.
No, I was born in a small town outside of Cincinnati. Well, it's everyone knows it. It's Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, Dayton, Ohio. All right. So you're a Bengal.
Yes. I was a Bengal, and then
and now you're a Buccaneer.
Right. Like my parents came from the Philippines, right? And this is a cool story. Both of my parents had worked their asses off to come to the United States. Both of them with very large families. My dad, being the playboy that he was, could not pass his exams. My mom ended up passing the exams before him. She was like 8 years younger than him.
Ooh,
so she hires. That's how Daddy rolls, man. Daddy packs the third rolls like that. And my mom actually hired him as an intern for a while, and they ended up going their separate ways, right? My dad ends up in LA, playboy again, right? My mom's in Minnesota, and they end up at a party in Ohio, and they're like, you? And so they end up getting together, and they created something. They created magic, man.
Are you referring to yourself as magic?
I'm talking about me. man.
Yeah. All right, guys, this has been a great interview. I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey,
We have
that doesn't
officially
work- that doesn't
jumped the
work-
shark.
that doesn't work very well in job interviews because I've done that one before, and like it was for a college dean position, and the college kids were like, "You son of a bitch."
Love it.
But hold on, this is the thing though, is like, let's not play down to our like the enormous power that we as humans have, and the enormous agency that we have, and do this humble bragging bullshit. It's taken me a long time to get to this point of being like, oh, something magical, you know. They created something that, like, for a long time I was not proud of, and now I'm sitting here, 8 o'clock, pretty proud of the ups, downs, and all arounds that I've gone through, George.
Hell yeah.
And I know it's been similar to you. Like, I think that's what we've connected around that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. That journey is really what this show is all about, honestly. The journey that we go through, the unconventional journey to leadership, is the reason that I started the show. It's the reason that I became the leader that I am today, because I wasn't always this leader, and the things that we learn on this journey, they're not all from school learning, guys. It's not all, a lot of people hate the term the school of hard knocks, but Marc and I have been to actual school and the school of hard knocks.
There's some scars on the forehead.
Yeah.
And there's some scars on the dome here when I shaved this off, man. I was like, oh, I've aged, man. I've aged, but I've aged well.
So yeah, born in Ohio and moved to Tampa probably about a year later, but yet you still remember falling flat on your face in the snow somehow.
I do.
As a 1-year-old.
I don't know. I don't know why, but I just remember this image of like walking down brick steps and just plopping down into the snow. And then the next remembrance I have is being in Florida, and it was probably around 3. And like, I remember looking at, and it doesn't frost over down here, people in Florida, but like there was like drops of water that had frozen on leaves. And my mom would walk me to preschool, which was across the street every day. Mm-hmm. And the thing was like back then it would take me an hour to get there because I was so like, I remember being so like curious about the world. And that's really what I've spent my life trying to do, is get back to that curiosity and fascination with the world. But my parents have moved to Florida on a wish and a prayer, because they were up in Ohio and they were like, we did not come from a place that was 120 degrees Fahrenheit to a place that's like 12 degrees. That's fucked up. And so they moved as far away from Ohio as they could. And they packed up all of their stuff and they were like, let's see what's in Orlando. And on the way to Orlando, they came across a small town outside of Tampa. And they were like, why don't we settle down here? And it was dirt roads. And my mom was crying. She was like, this is just like my shanty old town in the Philippines. And this place has grown. I'm quite proud of Tampa, and I'm quite proud of all the little places that I've called home. But this will always be home to me.
I love that, man. I love that. That love of home, it really helps to ground us and center us. I'll tell you that, you know my deal with Farmingdale, my hometown, little town on Long Island in New York, and I wouldn't be who I am without this town. This town has grounded me. This town has carried me. This town put me on its back when I needed it, and so I owe a lot to it. So I definitely appreciate that appreciation you have for your home.
Absolutely. And I wanted to throw this out about leadership as well. Leadership is a two-way street. It's not you being a leader and people damn following you. There's going to be some days, and if Luis or any positive psychologist or any folks who just know the rules of, or not the rules of life, but have just experienced life, one of the biggest ways to rebound as a leader or a human being is to have a relationship with the community and the people around you. I know that in the Joy Revolution, we call it your virtuous friends. It's not the Joy Revolution. It's Aristotle who called it your virtuous friends. These are the people who, thick and thin, when you're egotistical, when you're down, they're always going to be there for you. And that's my definition of home. And I think that should be something that all leaders think about is, where is your home base? And that could be a psychological place.
Yeah. Yeah. Marissa actually just threw a comment out there. That's great. Home has a whole new depth at the moment. And it really does. Since we're all pretty much stuck in our physical homes. It definitely has a whole new depth. We just did an episode, just to sidebar on that for a minute. We just did a whole episode about the effects of coronavirus right now and what's been going on in terms of productivity, in terms of, how people are feeling right now, and really talked mostly about creative ways to spin and keep the world turning, creative ways to sort of get out there and solve problems that we're dealing with right now without focusing on the negatives. And so I think if we all ground ourselves in home, it's going to do us a lot of good to sort of reset right now as we're all home and come out of this with a new understanding of what life should be like.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there's a lot of it might feel like there's a lot of weeds and a lot of fires that are going on right now, but as long as we have a place that we can call home, or a psychological place that we can always come back to, we can always retreat there, and it will always be a sanctuary for us.
Yep.
A safe place.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk for a minute about growing up in Tampa. Specifically, you mentioned before you have 2 Filipino parents. You also have a sister. I want to talk about life growing up. We have had a number of conversations. I grew up in a house of European immigrants, Greek, Yugoslavian. My mom's Yugoslavian, my dad's Greek, so primarily Greek household. And I know what that entails, and I know when I say that, you immediately spark, and you totally understand what I'm saying there. There's something about that, we'll say, foreign culture, growing up in a foreign culture within the United States, that's so, I think there's a lot of words that describe it. It's tough. It's different. It makes you feel different sometimes, but it's also wonderful and grounds you in a whole different way. And talk about it. Talk about growing up as a Filipino American, first generation, right?
First generation, born and raised.
Yeah.
On the playground was where I got picked on most of my days. But see, this is the thing. Before I even go and talk about a story, I want to make sure that I'm grounded in telling my story and appreciative of knowing that many people have grown up feeling like an outsider, especially being in like a male testosterone-centric or whatever the word is world, right? A lot of people, not just people of color or people of descent, who immigrated to the United States, go through this. Everyone will feel like an outsider at some point. For me, I had the luck of a couple things. Like, at first I felt like a hybrid, because I'd come to school and I'd speak half English and half Filipino, because they spoke Filipino Tagalog in my house, and when we come to school, we'd speak in English. So when my mom had a hysterectomy, and I went to all Catholic school through high school. I remember we do our morning prayers, and so my mom had a hysterectomy, and I didn't know what that was, the technical term. But the way they explained it to me is that mom was going to have a pee-pit transplant. Now, for all you Filipinos, that's going to make this an explicit, that's going to make George make it an explicit show. And that was like in, second grade. I was praying for my mom's pee-pit transplant, right? But like, I think, I think as I started getting older, one of the things that happened was I started looking around the class, and I was like, holy shit, one of these things is not like the other, and I remember suddenly feeling this sense of isolation, even though I was completely surrounded with other people. This feeling that like, like I'm not tall like the boys. Like I'm like the shortest kid in class by far, and my skin is browner. And like when we started liking girls, like none of them were giving me attention, and like so I wanted to do anything to suddenly grow armpit hairs with the rest of the boys, right? Like I was, I was a late bloomer, dude.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, like I remember looking in the mirror, dude. This is straight fucking serious. Like I remember looking in the mirror and being like, I didn't curse back then, but I was like, I hate who you are. I hate what you look like. I hate the fact that I'm so different. And like, if I could wish it all away, I would wish that I would be like white and 5'4" at the time, and have armpit hair and play on the basketball team. And, my parents had worked their asses off to get to establish their practice. And in Filipino culture, we have a third parent that's oftentimes pulled into the family. This is called your yaya. And so I remember my teacher coming in and saying, not all of us have maids like you. And like, that was so fucking culturally insensitive. And the thing is that I let it go. No, actually I didn't let it go because it's coming out as anger, and I have to realize what I'm feeling right now. But like, it tore me a new one, man. When all of a sudden I was this spoiled brat who had maids and all this stuff. She picked us up in a rusty ass Pinto. I was a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
And so like I started pushing my parents away, and being like, no, I'm gonna be Filipino. I want Z Cavaricis. I don't want those clothes that you're getting me, guys. I want Z Cavaricis. I want Guess. I want the color shirts. Remember those color changing shirts?
Yeah.
I wanted all of that stuff to fit in. And the thing was that like, man, the self-loathing and hatred just started piling up at that age. And by the time I came to college, it exploded out. And I was just like, anything that's white and gets in my way, I'm taking you out. And so like I was militant in college. I was like, people of color, Asian studies, we're doing this. And I didn't realize that all of a sudden I had become a bully. My leadership, my spark, one of the spark moments turned into, I was leading in anger. And if you were not angry with me, then you were not Filipino. You were a whitewashed piece. You were a whitewashed piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm, I've come to a nice place in my therapy about sort of that, and but also at the same time, like I don't hold back on saying some of the things that I used to say behind people's backs, because it's what I said.
Yeah.
And I have to take ownership of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What did it feel like as you got older, in terms of, not only just being a Filipino American, but just being you, Marc? I know you now, right? And we all know you as, the coach, the Joy Rev, the speaker, the Golden Mike Live, the Golden Mike podcast. We know that persona. And that's something you and I have talked about this, and we'll get into personas later. I would love to know, as you started
personas,
as you started coming into your own, as not as a leader, but just as a man, right? You're getting into your teen years. What did that Marc look like? Marc in high school?
I don't think that I've come into my own yet, George. And that's what I think I'm most excited about. But also at the same time, during my high school years, I remember this. I remember feeling very ugly. I went to an all-boys school, and the sheer bullying that happens in just any school, but especially an all-boys school,
sure.
is pretty wild. And the thing was that I started to have a very distorted view towards everybody else. I thought everyone hated me. I thought I was very low on the totem pole. And now that like I'm reconnecting with some of my friends from high school and stuff. I just got off the phone with somebody who from high school who wants to put together a band and stuff, right? I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that you thought of me, man. Like, that's cool. And he's like, no, you were totally cool in high school. And like, I just remember being angry on the inside. I also remember thinking that I was very ugly. And so part of the head shave was an homage to that, because I grew my hair out emo style, but in a way that it covered my entire face. It was like one of those, who's the guy in the Munsters where you can't see his face?
No, that's the Addams Family. That's cousin it.
Cousin it.
Yeah.
The Addams Family, right? So I covered my face, and I remember one of our lunch ladies, we called them the lunch babies. Oh my God! By the way, our high school best picadillo in Tampa. If you've ever had picadillo, you got to come to Jesuit High School and have their picadillo. But I remember she turned to me once and she was giving me my picadillo, and she was like, "Marc," I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And she was like, "You really need to stop hiding your face." And I was like, "No, this is just the way my hair is." And she's like, you're very good looking. And I was just like, whatever. She's a 60-year-old woman trying to make me feel good, you know?
Yeah.
She's like, you shouldn't hide your face. And I was like, that has stood with me for a very long time, like not hiding your face. And I'm going to jump that persona. In fact, like even when I cut my hair and I've turned it red or whatever, I put on more masks.
Yeah.
More personas. So there's still this sort of hiding of face that's been happening. And so, I remember being very quiet and trying to figure myself out. As my first band, we were called the Three Manic Depressives. I had no idea what a manic depressive was, but I was like, that sounds cool to me. And our buddy Phil, he was the drummer. He had discovered this small underground band from California called Green Day, and he wanted us to cover their music. And I think at the time it was the album before Dookie. It was called 1,000 Slap Happy Tunes, and so we covered it. We'd play their songs, very easy, right? I was the guitarist. I think I was the singer at times. And he called me one day, and he was like, "Hey, bro, come over." And I'm like, "For what?" And he's like, "Green Day's here. They're having dinner with my parents right now. Like, they needed a place to stay. They were touring the country, and they stayed at my buddy Phil's house." And I was just like, "Nah, I'll pass." And then like I ended up seeing them like a couple years later, and I was like, MTV MTV Awards, those little astronaut awards or whatever, and they're fucking playing. I'm like, that's Green Day.
That's great.
That's that guy.
That's great.
I was very much, and also at the same time, when it came to certain things like going out, I did not date until maybe in the very end of high school. I wanted to desperately, but I did not date. I just felt so ugly and terrified to ask people out on dates and stuff like that. And so when I asked someone out to like homecoming, it would be like the other Filipino in the other school. I would ask her to go out with me because I was like, no white girl's gonna go with me, man. So that's what I thought. And I spent those years like really studying hard when my parents kind of let me loose and do whatever I wanted, but I put my own rules. So I would come home by 10 o'clock so they wouldn't worry. It's weird, man. So I'd be home on the dot and stuff like that. I was pretty responsible. And then I got into drama like baby mama drama. That was later in my life.
That was later.
But I got into the drama club, and like that was a point where like all the masks could come off, and then suddenly I could play whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And I started to feel freedom, and I started to feel creativity, and I started to feel accepted and seen. And the thing was that I still felt like I wasn't truly seen, but like the characters I was playing and portraying were seen. So, that I graduated high school and I remember I had a all guy group of friends. We'd play board games. We were kind of the drama kids. And I remember saying goodbye to them, and it was just like, yeah, see you guys later, And then when I literally went to hug everybody, that may have been the first time that I broke down in a public setting. Like I couldn't hold it in that this group of men had become my cohort. They'd become my best friends. Joe Kelly and Andres Sanchez, and then going to the I went to Emory University for college, and going to the airport was very lonely for me. And then it was like this strange it was the first bromance, so don't get jealous, bro. So they all ended up like coming.
It wasn't a real bromance.
Yeah. That's
this is a bromance.
That's what I'll tell you, man.
All right, what's next here? Oh, Launchpad 516. Fabrizio, put that good stuff on for this one. Yeah. Yeah, I like this. Launchpad 516. What can I say about this company? My life's work. I founded this company in 2013, and man, what a journey it has been since then. I took everything that I've learned in business, in life, the mistakes, the successes, and I built this company with one mission in mind, and that was to go out there and fix businesses. And damn it, we have done it. Management consulting, what does that mean? You need help with growth strategy. Your company is failing. Your company needs help growing. Your company is doing good, but just needs that little extra push. That's us. We come in, we analyze, we work with your people, and we help you figure out how to get to the next level. I promise you that. Now, what else? Marketing? Sure. Media Convergence, the marketing agency within Launchpad 516. We have Fortune 500 clients, and we do it all. Web design and web development, social media marketing, email marketing, SEO, pay-per-click, video and graphic production, all of it. Public relations? Yeah. We are a creative marketing agency, and we get your brand out there, plain and simple. Welcome to creativity is our slogan, and we mean it. Now, what else? Coaching? Sure. We've been coaching for years. You just didn't know it. We've been coaching CEOs, COOs, C-level executives under our consults for years, but now with the leadership experience, we're taking it to the streets, and we are coaching one-on-one with individuals like you. You need help with personal growth. You need help with career growth. You need help finding your leadership and changing the world. That's that. The leadership experience will do that for you. And all of this, it's under the umbrella of Launchpad 516. So visit us at launchpad516.com, launchpad and the numbers 516.com. Check out the link in our show notes. Let's change the world together, guys. Fabrizio, great choice on the music, buddy. Let's jump back in. So one more thing for those that are new to the Launchcast, real quick, guys. This is a podcast that comes from me, George Andriopoulos. You can look up the Launchcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere podcasts are available. We come out every single Monday morning. All right. So we're talking leadership here. And this is my good friend, Marc Cordon. And we've been waiting for this interview for a while. All right. So let's jump into college for a brief moment, because this is where everything started changing. So you went to Emory, you majored in neuroscience, and then you achieved your master's in public health.
Yeah, bro.
I know that you were in a band. I know you were and are a musician. And we'll tell a story later about how this kind of came full circle for you, and some of your music came back into play just today for Speakers Who Dare. But talk to me about music for you back then.
Well, I think when I first started with music, I was a performance monkey. That's what I thought of myself as. And I faked it till I made it, and I never truly made it, you know. But I'm so grateful that my dad bought a violin. It was the first thing he bought with his money in the United States, and he took me to lessons. And I was like, "Are you fucking serious, man? Like, I got to take violin lessons." And the thing was that I could have a learning disorder. I'm not quite sure. You know, and that's why I'm like, I kind of faked it till I made it throughout everything, like even college and stuff like that. But like, I remember looking at the notes and I was like, I just can't get, I can't get it. I understand, but if you play the song for me, I can perform it. And so I remember I'd ask my teacher, and I was very, very quiet. I still am. You know that, George.
Yeah.
I'm a very introverted guy, and she'd be like, "This is the way you play it," and she'd play it. And then she'd be like, "Okay, now play it note for note, like as I play with you." And I would just follow by ear and not look at the page. And so, you know, I had to do like cummerbund and then red thing, and then we'd have our recitals. And I felt like a performance monkey, and I truly I wanted to be more like Michael Jackson, because that was the guy that was like inspiring the masses, right? And so when I came out to perform, I just came and did what I was told. I picked up the guitar probably when I was 18, and I just kind of started messing around with it. I saw my cousin play The Cure, Just Like Heaven. If anyone knows that song, it's the jam. It's the Spanish Fly, and like I fell in love with just playing the guitar, and it wasn't riffing and going crazy with it and all the stuff. It just had a very soothing effect, and it was one of the things that was for me,
Sure.
right? And that was healthy, you know. And eventually, what happened was we formed a band in college, and we started performing. And I think the first song we ever played together was Red Hot Chili Peppers' "Other Side." And then so we kind of played those type of songs, and then at one point we just started writing, right? And so the first song I ever wrote was called "Over You," right? And a lot of people thought it was this codependent relationship that I was writing about. I couldn't get over this person, but it was because I couldn't stop smoking, and that's literally how, you know, I would say basic my writing has been and has stayed, you know. And so like I've written and spoken in metaphors, but like we started maturing to the point where we almost got, I wouldn't say almost, to the point where we were in an office and they put a contract in it, and it was up to us to sign the contract. It was a very small label in Atlanta. I remember we came into the it was an old restored firehouse, and we came in and they were playing our music. They gave us champagne. And then like the label owner sat down with us and was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. So this is like, maybe this is some sort of negotiation table or something like that." That was my first interaction with like, okay, this is framing NLP type of bullshit. And I remember standing up for the rest of my band, and I was like, who has this type of face right now in the record industry? Who looks like us right now? And then I remember saying to her, if you just do your numbers on Asian Americans, we're just going to have a lot of support if you sign us. We will grow into our own. We will grow into our own voices. And by then we were winning a couple like Battle of the Bands and stuff like that. And she threw this really thick thing down, and we didn't have a lot to, you know, we took it back, and then we ended up not signing it, you know? And partially for me, I was like, how can I ever make money as a, as an artist, and so like it's, I really look up to the folks like Mike who made the jump and just committed and went. It wasn't until like my coaching years that I did that, but
Sure.
it was fun. It really brought out this new aspect. I started writing a lot. I started writing about my life. I remember writing the song "What Went Wrong," where I was like, man, I had everything, and like now when I come home, like my parents look at me, I've got all this hair on my face, I'm living on people's couches, and they say what went wrong, and then I go and perform in front of people, and I remember we were in Jacksonville, Florida, performing, and this person goes, the host goes, and now for the cultural act of the night.
Oh,
and
man.
and I just remember, boom, I was like, here's the next album. We are not the cultural act. Like, welcome to America, baby. And then the next thing was, I remember a guy was, I know they meant so, the intention was so good, but my anger interpreted it as I'm looking down on you. And I remember this guy bought me a drink in DC once, and he said, man, if I closed my eyes, I couldn't tell that you guys were a Filipino band. And I know he was like, you guys are really good. But I took it as, here you are still, man, second-class citizen. And you might think that I had like these lascivious years as a person in a band. Like I had the power to sleep around now and stuff like that. But it made that masking even worse, because I'd walk into a room, no one would recognize me. Then I'd go on stage. Everybody wanted to be around me, and it just made it even more lonely. And so I remember those. It was almost like high school when I put those boundaries on myself. I was not going to sleep with anybody, and I didn't. I was really happy about that. I was not going to indulge to the point where I was going to get into drugs or anything like that at that point.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of the most disciplined times for me, and I'm so glad that I was really disciplined, because to be straight up honest with you, with the way things have been going, and George, that I've fallen in terms of confidence. I can throw out a Golden Mike podcast like no other, or the Joy Revolution like no other, but then I'll second guess myself, and I'll call you, and I'll think that you're not going to be my friend and stuff. Like I get there's neurosis that still will sink in.
Yeah.
And I turn back to those songs when I was ultimately free and I was clear of thinking, and I'm like, holy crap, this was stuff that I was throwing away that I'm bringing back now and using for Speakers Who Dare.
Yeah, which is insane. I want to move on from this for a second. So I want to get into basically your college experience a little bit, and then how you moved on going forward from there. So like I mentioned, you went to Emory. You were a neuroscience major. You got your master's in public health. You did your band thing, which was a huge part of you. You were in a band in your senior year. You guys released an album, like you mentioned, and actually gave it away for free because...
Oh, that was when I was in a PhD. Yeah, that was our third album that we released, and it was called All Good Things. Yeah.
And you were at this point where... I know you mentioned to me that you sort of broke the internet with the album at the time, right? Because of bandwidth issues.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that hard to do it at the time, but also at the same time, when I spoke to that record executive and I said the community will get behind us, with or without you, I meant it. And when we put out the album, All Good Things, which was mostly about my Filipino American experience. And by Filipino American, it was Filipino or American or something on that spectrum. I never thought that I could rise above and create a whole new identity. That was just the singular plane that I lived on. And we put it out. I remember I was sitting in a class monitoring the numbers. We were talking about higher education. I felt like an imposter being there.
Yep.
And I remember our manager called us and was like, "We gotta fucking get the site back up." And I just remember laughing hysterically. I was like, "Yes," you know. And it was cool. It was
And
cool. And
it
then-
was quite a feat. But you didn't really tell many people. You didn't tell anybody about it because of your professional side at the time.
Yeah.
And so that I'm guessing that sort of won over at the time, and was the direction that you moved in terms of your professional side, right?
Yeah, the professional side always won over. Like anything that I felt like was creative was secondary to being a professional, like my parents were.
Yeah.
Right. And so, unfortunately, they were the ones who put the paintbrush in my hand with that violin. But then when I figured out what I could do with the paintbrush, you know, I became very creative about what to do with it. But it was always trumped by me tying a tie in an English knot every morning, putting on a suit, and then playing the role of a college administrator. And I did love that role, but also at the same time, I thought that the role needed to fit within a certain box, right? Like no one would respect me if I was in a band. You know, no one would respect me if I was doing this. And it became more important for me to move up in an organization and impress people than it was for me to fucking be myself.
Yeah.
And so it really was like a dual life at that time, you know. And I'm not saying it's like I don't have a dual life now, but I feel much more integrated at this point now, where I can, anyone who's seen my Golden Mics the first 2 years, what is shaking? You know, it was the ultimate performer, you know. But also at the same time, like my partner and stuff were like, man, when you take off that mask, man, if you ever let people see it, like you might make an even stronger connection. And so that's what I've really been focusing on since the launch of the podcast.
And so I want to talk about the professional side a little bit.
Yeah.
So you worked in the multicultural office for Emory when you started your PhD program. And then you moved on eventually to, which was the office you moved? You moved on to the you
Health
worked
promotion
in
office.
health promotion. Yeah. And so this is the story that I've heard before. You were the condom guy.
It was the condom office. We gave out we flung condoms, and I remember when I came in, I was like, it was the beginning of the hashtag movement, and I remember I was like, we are coming in and we are hashtagging not just condoms, you know. And I also remember being like, we are also not going to be the office of prevention. We are going to be the office of fucking promotion. Now they did haze me by having me do like the first couple weeks hand washing.
Yeah.
But isn't it ironic, you know, that the first thing that I did when I got there was called hand washing saves lives.
Yep.
Isn't it ironic? And so I'm so grateful for that opportunity, even though I didn't take it seriously with the hand washing thing. And then that's when part of the reason I moved out of the multicultural office was because I was seeing things like students who were coming out of the closet who are also Muslim saying, I could never tell my parents about this. I will literally get shunned from my home. I'll have no place to go. And I remember the day that broke me was a student that had become a regular in the office. My office was known as the time warp for the multicultural students. They'd come in and like 5 hours would pass, and then they'd just go and do their homework, right? And then I'd be left there to do my work, right? And I remember a student came in. I was going to a meeting because suddenly I was on these high-level meetings, assessment teams and stuff like that. And impressing those assessment teams became more important to me at one point than a student. And I remember a student was walking past me, and I just remember the look on her eye, bro. I knew something was wrong, and I was like, yeah, I'll get to you in a second. I'm late to a meeting.
Yeah.
And it turns out that she was sexually assaulted.
Oh man.
Right. And so I remember coming home that night, and I went in the shower, and I know that I was in there because the water was cold, and my partner came in and was like, dude, you've been in there for like an hour. I was like, oh, okay. And I knew it was time to go. And that's when I also knew that I was like, some of these people in these positions, man, of being these multicultural directors and stuff, we're flinging out these ideas, but these folks are going through some real fucked up shit right now. And like, we don't have the training or the capacity to do what we're doing. And I wanted out because I didn't have the training. Sure, I was a public health guy. Sure, I'd done my own work when it came to my identity, but not when people were getting raped and coming out of the closet, and they couldn't tell their parents or the religious communities. And I thought I began to disdain people in who thought that they could be gods working with these students and fix them. And that's why I wanted to go to somewhere else. I actually wanted to quit, and Emory was really nice, and I wouldn't say nice. They were kind. Nice is a non sequitur. They were kind, and they saw value in me, and they moved me over to health, and they gave me the ability to create, like creating a song. Was really nice, and I told them I wouldn't say nice. If I am, they were kind. Nice is a non sequitur. I want to create something that promotes well-being. I want to create classes on resilience. I want to create things that when people graduate college, I want to create those classes that they'll never fucking forget.
Yeah.
And so I was given the opportunity to start teaching these mini courses on happiness and teaching these, mixing them with social justice. And so everything was coming together. And also at the same time, in terms of coming together, in working in the condom office, there was a come together that happened with me. And suddenly, like, my partner at the time was pregnant. And remember, conservative South, private school that is concerned about its rankings. I'm concerned about my image. And I have to go and tell the office and the entire division that my girlfriend is pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot to take one of these thousands of condoms that our office is built on.
Oh,
dude,
man.
The shame of that, it was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough.
I'm sure. But the end result, and you and I have talked about this. We've had so many conversations on fatherhood and, the importance of it, its place in leadership. The end result is something I know that you would never, ever change what went down, it's whether you've discovered it or not, it's made you a better leader. I hear the way you light up, when you talk about your son. I know how having a kid affects your day to day. I know how it affects your decision making. I know how it helps you guide others, especially when you're a person that trains leaders. For me, that was like the growth moment. That was the moment when I was able to sort of find that balance of fatherhood and entrepreneurship and leadership, and being a good partner, a good husband. When all of that came together is when I was able to guide and lead people in the best way possible. Give advice that was based on reason, advice that's based in love and caring, advice that's based on experience. And that's something that fatherhood brings you. And so I think no matter how it happens, as long as we embrace it, accept it, and realize that it's a new learning experience for us, this is what brings us to a new level as leaders.
Yeah. So I was in hardcore therapy at that time. And oh man, my therapist was badass, and I came to a conclusion on two things. The first thing was about my identity as a Filipino American, and I had been seeing a lot of different people at that time, like, hey, man, you are fucked up, like you are psychotic, you are this, you are that. And then I came in and saw him, and it wasn't like I was looking for validation, but I was like, it was a white dude, and he turns to me and is like, you are the classic case of an Asian American. I'm like, what? And he's like, you want to step out and lead without apologizing to the family, without apologizing to the collective. And like, that will tear you apart until you lead. If you step up and lead, they will lead with you, and they will appreciate that. So like, don't feel like you're torn in two different places. And suddenly, like, I wasn't Filipino American anymore. Suddenly I was this Marc that was moving towards a joy revolution Marc, right? It's more than race. It's more than gender. But those things are those things are important. And then the second thing he said was, man, you're in for a doozy with this kid. And I was like, thank you. It's like, like the pressure came off of the valve, because I felt the pressure of the world, being a good dad and all this stuff. And he's like, Marc, all I can tell you is this. You're going to fuck up in front of him 1,000,000 times, but show up.
Yep.
Period.
And
when he said that, it was game changing in terms of being a perfectionist. I mean, I've still got those tendencies now, but like, it came down a notch, right? And like, it wasn't gonna. I've always wanted to be a father. I've always wanted to be a father. And to be quite honest with you, I've never said this before. I've had some scares before. Scares, right? We know what scares mean, right? And I remember a former partner saying to me, if you were more equipped to be a father, I might go through with this. And I remember, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, wow, that is a fucking wake up call. And so there were two things. It made me want to think about, what does responsibility mean? And then second is, what does it mean to truly be a father? And then what does she mean? Because if we look nowadays, like, it's not just about fatherhood. There was a speaker today that had talked about the pressures of being a single mother and the little check cards you have to do. And that hit me so hard, right? And so when little man was coming into the world, like, I was really excited, and I was also really frightened. And then when I saw him come out, right, and then I was like, just kind of holding him for a second there, and like, the umbilical cord is still like pulsing, and you're like, am I supposed to cut it now, or like it's alive, or and they're just like, just go for it, man.
The joys
like,
of parenting.
Yeah, right. And then you just cut it, man, and it's like, oh man, like, you are in for a wild ride, boy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. And I know you've embraced it, and I think it's also, and this is total side note as well, I think it's I think it's good that we have these conversations too, not just here on the Launchcast, but privately as men. I think that part of our circle, extended circle, whether it's your circle, my circle, our circle together, it's filled with men that actually can appreciate these kind of things, can appreciate these conversations. I'll shout out my man Fred Banny, who you know from TEDx Farmingdale, who leads Conversations with Kings, a really intentional dude that wants men to have these conversations. And so he and I, even last week, 2 weeks ago, he and I had a really, really personal conversation about shit that men don't talk about. You and I have had, you a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to reach out for something, and you're like, "Hey man, shut down for the day. I got kid stuff to deal with." And I'm like, "Yeah man, no problem." Yesterday you reached out for something. I was like, "Dude, I'm shut down for the night. I got stuff going on with my kid."
Yep.
And so, I think surrounding yourself as a leader, surrounding yourself with those people, that circle, those people that understand life, those people that understand the ups and downs. You mentioned before, even, and we're going to actually get into this, this conversation, but you mentioned before that sometimes when you go through a tough time, the crazy shit that goes through your head, right?
Yeah.
And how you get down on yourself. And we all do that, right? We all get self-conscious about ourselves and whatever. And you thinking you're going to lose a friend over just not being in the right headspace or whatever. And that's, if you lose a friend over that, it's not a friend you should have had in the first place. Honestly, I'm at that point in my life, man. You get it. You're of the same age as me, although 2 years older. I'm just going to throw that out there.
But you look 10 years older.
I look 10 years older than me when I was 30. You look like me when I'm 70, basically.
See, now the thing about me is I'm gonna look young probably for a couple more years, and then all of a sudden it's just gonna all raisin up. I'm gonna look like a bag of wet clothes all of a sudden. It's just like it happens overnight.
Not to stereotype you, but damn you Asians.
Asian don't raisin.
My wife looks like she's well, I didn't want to say. My wife looks young, and she's gonna continue to look young.
Love
but
you,
yeah,
Colleen.
man, love you, Colleen.
Yeah.
Love you, temporary Fabrizio.
Temporary Fabrizio.
She won't even look
How's
at
she
me.
doing over there?
She won't even look at me.
I think we should fire Fabrizio and keep Colleen full time.
Oh God, I'd love it. But yeah, the overall theme to what I was just saying is basically if those people that are in your life that would leave you when you're not in the right headspace shouldn't have been there to begin with. I'm 40 now, man. I've lived some life. I've experienced some things, and all I know right now is that joy and positivity is all that I want in this life right now.
Yeah.
I don't need that other shit. So if people can't handle, the ups and downs that a human being has on a day-to-day basis and can't be with you through those, then adios. Bye, Felicia.
Let me ask you this, man. I know you've gone through some ups and downs on epic levels and on small levels, right? Whether it be on your business or personal life. One of the things that people warned me about was like the more I put myself out there, the more I think the way it was described was the more you try to spread your wings, the more people will try to clip it, right? And so I think I've talked to you a little bit about what happens when people start hating on you and stuff like that, because I'm just trying to do my thing and people are hating on you. And I know there was a point where you were very self-conscious and you moved to a point now where Launch Dad 516, you're doing these tributes to Stone Cold Steve Austin shirts and stuff like that. How did you deal with that, man? Because that was definitely something that I've been dealing with.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that I wanted to go over tonight, so I appreciate you bringing it up. I'll tell you one thing right now. Number one is that and we've talked about this before, both you and I, and on this show. The transition from shithead to whatever I am now, not so shitty head, was long. And it took a lot of work personally, and it took a lot of healing, took a lot of forgiving myself, took a lot of forgiving others, and so experiencing that entire journey was part of the healing of not letting those haters affect my day to day, right? Because the early part in that journey was when you're starting to turn that corner and starting to become this person that you're proud of, and that you wouldn't mind showing off to the world, is scary because you're proud of who you are now, but then all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't want to put it out there, especially today, right? Because, you know, today it's social media and you know, especially if you're a business owner. Dude, if I was just working for some company and didn't have to have a public figure persona and a podcast and public speaking and all that stuff, man, I don't know how much healing I could have done because I kind of had to force myself through that process, because I could have just hidden in my shell and not come out and hidden from the world and just lived in my little bubble and everything would have been fine. But the fact
which
that
is how I feel that I felt this week up until the filming of Speaker Sudair.
Yeah. And so getting out, you know, forcing yourself to be out there because of who you might be, right? Or the business that you do. It's scary. And there is that point where you just have to leap and put yourself out there and trust that the work that you're doing and the person that you are, is somebody that you're proud of and somebody that you are comfortable putting out there and taking those lumps if they come to you. And then I think it's over time, it's when the lumps come, when the haters come, when the NWO invades, right? and they're trying to fuck your whole world up and turn it upside down. It sucks and it hurts and it's really heavy. And then it gets better because it does keep happening, and then it gets better and better. And then I don't know, man, I got to this point where I was kind of like, hey man, I am so authentic and honest out there now. I'm not hiding who I was. I'm not hiding, you know, things I did. I put it all out there. You know, I talk about it. I've built a platform where I literally talk about the fucked up shit that I did and how I learned from it and how I can help you, my client, learn from it, right? And so at a certain point, when all the forgiving and the healing happened and the haters start coming out at that point, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm not afraid anymore, because what are you going to say that I haven't said already? You know?
Yeah.
It's that whole, I know you've seen 8 Mile, right?
I was actually just watching that right before I filmed.
Yeah.
The part where, like, Rabbit.
The rap
goes,
battle.
He takes everything away.
Yeah. He goes, he's like, I do live in a trailer. I am a fucking joke.
Fuck free world. Fuck free world.
Yeah. Now everybody in
Oh my God. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah. But that was pretty much it. It's kind of like that. It's that B Rabbit moment of like, what are you going to say about me? Hold on, before you go, you know, hold my beer for a second while I tell everybody one more time who I was.
Yeah.
Now tell everybody, where's your power? There's no more power. There's no more leverage in that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that, you know, definitely I'm a big proponent of the understanding that, or big proponent of continuing to understand that words create worlds, right? Like, so definitely some of the things that I'm saying could definitely be interpreted as more than heteronormative, close-minded, sexist at times. And the thing is I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing the best that I can, and I want to have these conversations with civility with people so that I can continue my growth.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that, you know, and I also think that, like, when it comes to things like up-leveling or whatever, like in a video game, right, you have to fight that big boss first, you know, before you get to that next level or you get to those new powers in the video game. And I think if you consider life like a video game, if you want to up-level, you know, you're going to have to beat a big boss. And sometimes that big boss is your own damn self. You know, sometimes some people might be listening to this right now feeling that what's happening in the world, they want to give up their coaching program or they want to numb out. And this is even more of a time for us to connect with what it is that we truly are fucking passionate about and lead from there. because that will get us out of it,
Yeah,
right?
man.
And so things have changed so much in the past month that I wouldn't say that I've leveled up, but that's to be determined in the long run. But I could definitely say that I know who my friends are. I appreciate my friends, and it's if Herman is watching, like Herman had a conversation with me once about I told him I feel like Thanos at times. Like I want to destroy the world, and he was like, "You have the power to destroy the world or create the world," and that was the very beginning of the Speakers Who Dare piece, And then once he took me from there, I have to sing his praises. He presented me with this article, everyone should go and read, called the Knight in Rusty Armor. And how many of us right now are walking around fucking flaunting our shit with old, antiquated, rusty armor that if we just take it off, we can enjoy our meal instead of squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. Like we can absolutely be our authentic selves. And it came for me in the past month through tears and wondering who my real friends were, and wondering if this is the right thing to do. And if anyone out there feels like you're second guessing yourself, or you need to settle for a life less than what you always had dreamed it would be, you're giving your power away. Period.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love that. So let me paraphrase some of the stuff I was going to go over here. Because we've completely gone into the vortex. We've gone into the Joy Bros vortex.
He warned me not to go into the Joy Bros vortex, but
here we are. So I'm going to skip past about 15 years of Marc's life. Timeline wise now, you had your son, you moved on from Emory, right? So we're going to paraphrase this part. You moved on from Emory.
Thanks to roller derby.
And you know what? I think we're going to have to cover roller derby in a whole other episode because I had stuff but that's a whole other thing, right? Thanks to roller derby, thanks to coaching where, there was a snap thing where you just decided one day, like, coaching is it. Positive psychology first, I should say, and then the coaching aspect. And it was like, boom, you were kind of done with not so much done with academia, but you were done at Emory. You were done.
Boy, you did your homework, man.
Yeah, done working, done with the PhD. It was just the switch flipped for positive psychology, and you were full on. And you kind of knew that the end was near with Emory because you had sort of checked out, right?
Who the fuck did you talk to at Emory, man? Did you get into their HR records, son? Well, this is an even more intimate disclosure here, and that's this. What I had been thinking about for a long time, and I couldn't get my head around it, was I'm destined for something bigger than this shit. And I was brought up to think you should be grateful for what you have. And I was torn because I was like, I'm bigger than this. I'm not doing like condom shit. Like, I already did some good things in the multicultural office. And by doing good things, meaning like I feel like I had transformed some lives and those lives had transformed me. And now I'm in this office and I look down on my boss. I have to be honest. Like I was like, this person is so box thinking. Like there's the opportunity here to truly be a proactive office. We got the Dalai Lama, we got Jimmy Carter, we got Corey Keyes, who I'm going to be teaching his work tomorrow in our free class. Like, we've got all this stuff. We could be a destination for fucking happiness and authenticity and like leadership, and we could put it all together, and it was like several organizations, like it had to go through certain red tape, and I was growing antsy, man. Like, and this is where like folks like Herman, I wish he was there earlier in my life, but I'm glad he wasn't, so I could go through it by myself. And I was like, really, I had this mindset that I was like, I'm above this. I'm so much better. But instead of embracing that, I thought it was a bad thing. I thought it was evil. And so it kept me playing safe. And then literally there was this point. That's why I actually had the cover still of the book. It's me. I won't name the book. I'll give it to you for fucking free if you want it. But like, it's me screaming and turning my hair red. Like, fuck, that Michael Jackson that I always wanted to be is about to come out, people. No, yeah, there he is. Yeah, I see him in the replay. So like that Michael Jackson is about to come out. I am not playing performance monkey for anybody anymore.
Yep.
That was where I was at in my life. And the thing was like, unlike with my family and unlike with roller derby, I no longer was showing up energetically at work. I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Fuck it. And I was the happiness guy.
Yeah.
And then, performance plan, I was like, fuck it, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to really go, I love Emory University. It made me everything who I am, and it pushed me out of the nest so that I could actually spread my wings when I was too afraid that people were going to clip them.
Yeah.
But I one of the last conversations I had with my colleague was, I'm going to get fired soon. And she was like, no way. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get fired. And it's going to be a great way to end my time here. It's going to be a great way to start my new journey is with the, if you know the tarot deck, like that tower coming down, the collapsing, like I talked about earlier in my speech, the collapsing of something and the rebirth of something new, wildflowers growing from the collapse. And so I knew that I would be able to tell that story. And it's not like I wanted to control the narrative, but if I was too much of a wimp to leave and say I'm a quitter, and I was too prideful to be fired. And so thank God they fired me. Thank God. Because then when that unraveled, it allowed me to go to my PhD program and just say, yo, there's no positive psychology here. Thank you for doing that. And so I was a couple of months away from finishing my dissertation. And the thing is that my book, and I'm not trying to promote my book was all the scraps and flecks that I had written in my dissertation, except I got to put like Star Wars references and like wrestling references, and I wanted to make it relevant to human beings. I didn't want it to sit on a motherfucking shelf and gather dust like so many other dissertations. I wanted it to have an impact. I didn't just want to go through motions so I could have the word doctor after my name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the way I exited. And the way I exited, I entered this new phase, and within a week I had my coaching website up and all this stuff. Now that didn't mean I was close to being where I am.
But you started that journey. You started Greater Good coaching. You eventually moved on to Make Money coaching, which you secretly used positive psychology for coaches to be happy. You had this benevolent agenda where you were like, hey, I've learned the art of coaching and actually making money doing it. And now I think I could teach other coaches, but secretly you're like, I just want to teach you to be happy. I want to teach you how to do what you're doing.
You officially have informants.
Yeah. I just want to teach you to do what you're doing, and because I know you're coaching because it makes you happy. And so this theme of joy has always been so important to you. You wrote your book Beyond Resilient, which you mentioned. And then once you were gaining traction, there was a shift in your life. You had to start commuting from Atlanta to Tampa because your dad got a little sick, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about this for a minute. I don't really want to talk specifically about your dad being sick and what's going on with him, unless it's something you want to get into. I just want to talk about, because I've been in this situation very recently, although very different, types of sicknesses. But you and I come from very different cultures, but in a way, there's the culture of the United States Anglo family, right? And then there is the foreign culture, whatever that culture may be. And I think a lot of them are lumped together. Me being Greek, you being Filipino, my wife is a whole plethora of things. She's Taiwanese, she's Irish,
She would be our child.
She would be our child. Yeah. Basically. And so all of these different cultures, they have one thing in common, and it's that when it comes to your parents and what they have done for you, and I don't know if this is born out of guilt. I do know that a lot of cultures do use guilt in this dynamic, which sucks when you're growing up.
Not just cultures, organizations in general.
And it sucks when you're growing up. Like, I get it, but there's also a responsibility to the people that raised you. And there's this responsibility of, hey, we raised you, we gave you everything you needed growing up. And so all we're asking you is that when we're of a certain age, don't forget about us, right? Simple as that. And so you're there, I'm there, I'm happily there, honestly. And I think you feel the same way. There are people out there, and you and I have talked about this too, people out there that don't understand those relationships. They'll think they're unhealthy. You told me a crazy story once about people that were really trying to distort your view of your relationship with your parents and how traumatic that was for you. So just talk about it.
I want to give anyone who has ever tried to distort that props, because the intention, I'm sure, was an intention of, look here, Carl Jung is talking about the man child and how unless you go through some sort of ceremony, you will always be a child and in a grown man's body. Well, okay, well, they're doing what they need to do, but also at the same time, I still have the decisions to make whatever I need to make. It serves me to do this, and I'm happy to do this, and it's also bittersweet to do this. But thank God for Amazon Prime, so I can communicate with you and my son and my father and stuff like that. But I'm not. When I mean there are places that I call home, this is home, and it makes me so happy to see my dad, to celebrate with my dad like he wanted to celebrate. And the other night when I was in the biggest moment of peril and sadness, he just came out and, he's losing some of his memories up there. And instead of wallowing in my bullshit, I was like, tell me about Grandpa. Instantly, old dad came back.
Yeah.
And then there will be days where I'm on the golden mic and he, I'm going to be inheriting this house, and also respecting the fact that this is currently the house that I grew up in, so the rules will change when I officially inherit it. But so I'm working on a golden mic, and then Dad will start, he's not quite sure where he is at times, and then I'll hear him play Que Sera Sera on the piano, and it's perfect. Not one fucking note is off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's still there, man. And then that decision to leave Atlanta was hard, bro.
Yeah, man.
It was hard.
I know it was. And I think, if I could just offer a bit of advice there, I don't I don't ever want to be in that position you were in as far as making that decision. What I will say is, though, the communication, the fact that you never went anywhere, right? Maybe physically, but you were there, right? For everybody. Physically, you had to put yourself in a few places, and that's tough, and I get it. But in the grand scheme of a life, and you look back on the decisions that you made, and it's not about loyalties. It's got nothing to do with that. It's responsibilities. You have responsibilities to quite a few people when you're a father, a son, a brother, and so in the grand scheme of things, you only made decisions to help others. They weren't based on helping yourself, right? And so I think you need to understand that, because I know this is tough for you. I don't want to ask you how you were feeling, how hard that decision was, whatever, because it's ridiculous to ask that. I know it was hard. I know it's a hard decision. You're for a short while, you're being there right now as a son, as you need to be, while still being there as a dad too. And in the grand scheme of an entire life, it'll be a fleck, like you said. A fleck.
I've also explored how can I be falling back on these pieces to not be my greatest self, right? How can I be using these as excuses to not show up for the rest of the world? Yes, I love my son like a motherfucker, and my parents and my sister and her kids, and dare I say, a whole lot of other people, including my ex, just not romantically. I don't even know where I'm going with that, bro. Like it's a different kind of leadership, and I think in terms of scouring, where this could be something where caretaking is a form of control. I need to make sure that I understand that I really have no control over this. And so to try to control it is just as much being in denial as anything else. The idea that I choose to be here, and then, what I tell my son is what I tell my son. But in the few in the conversations that I will have in public, I do tell him, when your mom gets old or needs your help, I want you to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want you to feel like you're pressured to do it if she doesn't want you to, but I want you to see that that's an option.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another thing that I fully embrace moving forward, is that this is all temporary, man.
It's all temporary.
This is temporary. It's a celebration.
It's a long life.
Yeah, the Joy Revolution is about, what started my Joy Revolution was I'm living a life full of regrets, and how do I turn that around? And well, number one is I'm going on a long journey between my head and my heart, and getting rid of people pleasing, and it comes back harder every single time. Every time I think I've gotten rid of it. And also at the same time, what does it mean to be a father nowadays? There's this archetype of fathers that I saw around the time I was growing up, in watching Michael Jackson, the Family Ties dad, this dad, that dad. We get to grow up in an age where what is it called, the Friday night
TGIF.
TGIF dads, right? Those dads that were physically present, and now the choice that I've made is a choice in which energetically I have to continue to show my son that I'm present with him at all times, and also at the same time having very, pretty much growing the fuck up and having some conversations with his mom about what it means to raise this child, to make choices, and also at the same time within a place of discipline, and I think there's a really great balance there.
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure.
I think
agree
that's a
with you.
different form of leadership, though.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. I'd like to explore that a little more. Not here. Within the Joy Rev. Here, we're in the vortex. We're so deep in it. Let's get a little more positive here. We talked about some heavy stuff, stuff that
Hold
that
on,
makes us
that
who
is
we are.
positive. Heavy stuff can still be
It
positive.
is. Well, that's what I was going to say. This is stuff
Yeah.
that makes us who we are. And
Yeah.
when we look at the positive spin on everything, and it's not about putting a spin on it, it's about really finding the joy in the decisions you make, the joy in why you do things, the joy in everyday life. If we look at our lives in that way, about the joy in every moment, I think it can really help us to grow as leaders, as human beings. And so all of these choices, everything that you did, they led to a series of events over the last year since I've known you, a year plus, where you started using speaking as a platform. Although you've always been a speaker, whether it was in your academic days, the nonprofit that you ran,
Man, yeah, we're going back.
yeah. You've always been a speaker. You and I met Speakers Who Dare 2019, the inaugural, which used to be TEDx Lincoln Square. We were brought together through a series of events. TEDx Lincoln Square, I applied to, and somewhere between the time I applied and I got accepted, they had transitioned to Speakers Who Dare. They left the TEDx platform. Probably one of the best things that ever happened to both of us professionally, because we not only got introduced to each other and the bromance started, but we got introduced to a slew of people that have really changed our lives. Of course, we're going to shout Trisha Brooke, right? Who is so incredible as a leader, and have really seen the full spectrum of her leadership as of late. Because Marc and I, when we met her, were both in positions where she was our executive producer for an event we were speaking on. So she was our leader, our mentor in this situation. And as my friendship has evolved with her, I don't know how you feel about it, Marc, but it's gotten to a point where she has had moments of coming to me for things that I may specialize in, skill sets that I may have, and look to me as a colleague, as an equal, as maybe a mentor in other things, and so that full range of leadership where you can not only lead people but let them lead you at times. I saw it. We were both on a conference call that I held last week. We did a business mastermind call surrounding the coronavirus crisis, about how business owners should be dealing with this within their businesses. And she gave herself to the process, as did you, where I wanted to lead the conversation. And so people like Trisha that we've been introduced to through Speakers Who Dare, and of course the event itself, which was game-changing for all of us, not only in terms of our missions, our joy revolutions about getting them out there, but just what we've learned, right, being on platforms like that.
My gosh. Yeah. I mean, leadership-wise, yes. I'm so fortunate to have folks like you and Trisha, Nikki Bruno, Herman, Keith, all these folks that are kind of, I feel like are in our space right now, and to see something that was on a speaking platform literally 6 weeks ago, and within 6 weeks, it's turned around to something that is broadcast to even more people, impacting even more people. It's inspiring. And, whenever you can work with a tribe that, I think during times where it feels like adversity is happening, adversity is the perfect disruptor to really bust out that guitar and write, or bust out some of those creative skills and truly think outside of the box. And it is an interesting time when it comes to what does this epoch mean? Is this a new type of zeitgeist in which we are going to things are going to collapse, and we are we are going to have to rethink things. I think it is it's a new epoch, and I don't think it's going to go away. And so, in terms of leadership, I think adding the word consciousness to it or mindfulness to it, and I think I'm not sure if that's the buzzword now, but there was something leadership that was going on that I saw in the news very briefly. But I do think that leaders can turn to others and say, "You are the best that I know, George, at what you do. Help put me over."
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. And these are the types of people that we've come in contact over the last year. It started with...
Hi, Melody.
It started with Speakers Who Dare. It continued after that. We started having creative conversations after that. How we can work together, just collaborate a little bit. We got together on your live show, the Golden Mike Live, for a few interviews. Got to know each other a little bit better, and then all the while you were running the Joy Revolution. I don't know if it was the first or second cohort of that, which you co-founded, and I watched from the outside. I actually approached you about what is it about, and you and your partner at the time had told me all about the program, and it seemed so. It's really what enamored me when we talk about putting each other over. It's really what enamored me in terms of coaching, because I never really wanted to coach. I don't want to say I didn't want. I never thought about coaching on an individual level. You know, I own a consulting firm, and I always did executive coaching within our consults, and it's the same type of coaching, but it's only as of late that I decided to take it to the streets, and it was really, learning your program, learning how much you help people, how cool that program is, how flexible it is. It's not like what enamored me about the Joy Revolution was that it was like this misfit version of a coaching program. I've been sort of opened up to the coaching world as of late, as of this last year, and I see your program. I see the programs that I know of the people that are in our circle. I think they're all super interesting. And then I look at some others out there that are these very rigid, like, this is the steps and these are the classes and blah, 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 blah. And they're, a lot of them are bullshit programs. I'm not putting anybody's down out there, but the rigidity of a coaching program, when it's super rigid as if it was a class that you were taking online, coaches aren't all that bad, bro. Nikki says, I'm talking about a very specific thing, Nikki. I want to get to my point. The rigidity of some of these programs is what, for me, because for me, not all programs are for me. They are what turned me off. And when I looked at yours, that was like the antithesis of a coaching program, where it accomplishes exactly what a coaching program is supposed to, but in a very different way, in a way that seemed very unique to me. It popped to me. It was between the font and the imagery and, just the optics on the front end were very different, and I thought that was really cool. And then you with your persona, with the red hair and everything, and then your partner at the time that was running it with you, it was just so interesting. And I bought into it in terms of wanting to learn more about it. And you were kind enough to tell me how these things work and how coaches can help people. And so as we sort of traveled down that road, I'll take a detour from coaching for a second, is where I decided to host TEDx Farmingdale. I was the executive producer of TEDx Farmingdale, of which you, not only were you one of the invited speakers, but had you not been invited and applied with that application, 150% you would have made it. And you gave your killer talk about extraordinary growth on ordinary days. We've talked about the process a lot of times on all these different shows that we have, and so we don't have to get into that. You also around that same time, a little bit later, you gave a talk at TEDx Ocala. And then this is where we kind of started working together. This is where the Joy Bros were born.
Joy Bros tag team.
You had asked me if I would come on to coach within the Joy Revolution. Now, at the time, I was starting to build my own platform, the leadership experience, but I really jumped in because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to go through one of your cohorts, and I had already seen your cohorts before, but I wanted to actually go through one, see what it was like to coach on it, just so I can learn a little bit more. And that's kind of where we're at today, really.
Absolutely. I think that sums it up pretty well. I've always been a little bit of a trickster and someone who wants to, no, not even a trickster. I've been a trickster, but not for the Joy Revolution. The Joy Revolution was the first place where there was a departure from the persona of the Golden Mike character that I played every day. Yeah, Golden Mike, give me hearts, right? And it was fully embracing this sort of sage and this sort of teacher that I always wanted to be when I was at Emory. That's what I missed so much about Emory. And so, yeah, I at first I mastered in the Make Money coaching program, and then I just couldn't control it anymore. It needed to be something. It needed to be something else. It needed to be something that was like a new university. And this is the orientation, or the way that my co-founder and I had called it, this was your disorientation to life. That first class that we're going to start tomorrow, and really talking about what the fuck the status quo has done to us in terms of getting us to not think for ourselves and giving our power away like we don't want it. And so essentially these huge tuition fees that I had paid to go to Emory and study with amazing people and the neuroscience and Corey Keyes' work, and then working on these flourishing programs. I wanted to take it to the streets. I wanted to bring this course to people in a way that they could think about their joy revolutions. This would light them the fuck up and also get them out there and doing some social change. I'm sorry, personal growth people, but personal growth is not enough. We have to take our personal growth and move it to a place where sometimes people feel hopeless, or they're in fear, or they don't have the resources to fucking access things like like joy. And in many ways, people have marketed joy as something you have to pay for, and it's boxed, and you now you unbox it on YouTube and you're happy for 30 seconds, and then they don't see that you throw away your toy after the unboxing, right? It's the unboxing that's the best part. How can we live day to day in a state, even when the external world is in chaos, we're okay with where we're at? What I loved about the program and the co-founder who was there, and now you who are here, is that it's allowed me to fully embrace being the sage, being the guy who mixes the chemicals and seeing the chemicals blow up. That's what universities were for in the first place, is for us to experiment with ideas. And then once those ideas get polished, to put it on paper and make the invisible visible. Or to step on a fucking stage and instead of saying my name is Marc Cordon, TEDx speaker, we are more focused on the change that we can make in the world. And that's why I'm so proud to be a speaker who dares. That's why I was very proud to be on TEDx speaking my mind on what had happened in terms of my seizures, to how those seizures turned into a little napkin model. And I have no problem also saying that I had been accepted to a few TEDx's that didn't make sense. Yeah. It felt not right for me. And I'm glad to see other people walking away from TEDx's too, because it's not about the title. It's about the fact that each of us, especially given what we're given right now, the opportunity to be on social media and do some social media for some social good, we still can make change from our houses. Yeah. And eat dinner with our families.
Yeah. That's it. Love it. And so I want to just for a minute talk about, and then we'll start to wrap up. I want to talk about this newest iteration of the Joy Revolution right now. It's badass, dude. It's badass.
sick.
So I want to tell people right now, and then I'll let Marc get into it. Tomorrow, first day, free first week, right?
Yeah.
Right? You can sign up for the first day.
Absolutely. If you just go to if you go to joyrevolution.com, just click up there. Tomorrow's class and our first coaching session on Friday is completely free. And so the marketers right now are going, oh, he's doing that as a funnel, perhaps. And also at the same time, Corey Keyes' piece is the best motherfucking thing I've ever learned. And I can't wait to give it away for free. And I can't wait to coach around that. And I can't wait to show you how social media, how movies, how BMX, biking things, the way that he presents that model of happiness forever has changed my life. And the thing is that you don't need to go through the whole program. If it rings true for you, come to the whole program. We'll find a way to get you in. Yeah. But if all you need right now is that push, let me and George just have the opportunity to present some information that cost me a lot of years and a lot of money in higher education searching for. I was surrounded by books my entire life, and this one thing that Corey did has forever changed my life. Forever changed my life. And I can't wait to give it away for free tomorrow.
Love it. Love it. So the core class is going to be led by Marc. The Joy Revolution. He's going to be talking joy theory. He's going to be talking about all that good stuff.
Yeah, and to kind of talk about the joy theory stuff, there's some stuff that I've created, whether you're a coach or not, but just to to provoke you to think about what you know intuitively and to act on it. I call it, a lot of people call it praxis. Taking theory to practice. That's why this stuff, even the stuff that I've written, is just bullshit shelf help until you actually take action on it. So it goes from looking inward and being like, what is it that inspires me? And then taking it outward and saying, what is it that ignites me? And then actually taking action on it and saying, this is my joy revolution. This is my declaration. And I'm going to fucking move forward with it.
Yeah.
And now you've got two coaches that have felt what it's like to declare your joy revolution and feel the loneliness sometimes, or the haters, and still push through that.
Yeah.
What does it mean to bring it to a community? What does that mean? What does that mean to step on a stage, and when you step off the stage, you know that the world is in a better place. And that's where you come in, George.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt it was important. I wouldn't have jumped into this unless I thought it was a place where I could be of service to others. My Jesus level, as me and Marc say.
It is your Jesus level, yeah.
Which
iPad coaches, that's level 4.
Level 4. Level 4. I call it the Jesus. But yeah, I thought that I could be of service in this capacity. And so I'm going to be leading the speaking and writing tracks, where we're going to be talking about how to take that joy revolution and disseminate that information through those two platforms. And it's not just the mechanics of speaking or writing. It's a part of it. It's the whole process of it. It's the feelings around it. It's from deciding you want to speak until walking off of that stage from a unique perspective. And I'm not doing this in that rigid style, right? Because I wouldn't do it if Marc asked me to do that. I won't get into it, but we don't want that rigid. I didn't want that rigid style personally. Mm-hmm. And so when I could be the rogue coach, right? When I could be myself, when I could be speaking from experience, I'm not going to be a teacher out there. I'm going to be storytelling. I'm going to tell you my story. I'm going to help you find parallels. I'm going to share a few tips with you. I think it's going to be helpful, and I think we're going to have a great time. I think there's going to be a lot of self-discovery there. It's
going to be more than helpful. George, I have to thank you on the show. At the 11:59th hour, you know that there were a couple changes in my plans for the speech, And
We're talking about Speakers Who Dare today, 2020.
yeah, Speakers Who Dare, who went out today, and all I needed was an hour with you, and it completely changed how I embodied the speech within less than 24 hours later, you know. And it didn't matter how much I knew my lines and stuff like that, but like the focus on be present, Cordon, and embody it, you know. And I don't know if you know this, but I called up Emory professors and all this other stuff, and they were all saying the same thing: embody it, just embody it, you know. And so I love how the Joy Revolution has developed. I pay homage to the people who've come through it. I pay homage to the leaders who've come through it. And I am so excited about what we are about to do and what we are about to witness with the folks who are coming through and just say, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to find more joy. I'm ready to commit to a life of less regrets. I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to dumb shit down in there. I'm going to give you the actual like the actual references so you can take that and write grants, for God's sake. Get some money so that we can run programs. It's for a special taste, but where we are going, George, my friend, you and I are the misfits. This is for the misfits. This is for the people, the early adopters who see that the world is not going to snap back like a rubber band when this virus has gone through. This is I wouldn't even call this a wake-up call. This is a paradigm shift. And when paradigm shifts happen, it's important for us to be creative and to find ways to live in purpose through it. Don't believe me? Read the work of Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, when he was in a fucking concentration camp and he went and said, you can take everything from me but my freedom to respond to what they're doing to me.
Yeah. Man, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So we start tomorrow. And yeah, come through, guys. Joyrevolution.com. Check it out. Click that link to get in on that first week free. See what it's about. See what we're about. I promise you that you will. I'm not going to promise you any guarantees or anything like that. I promise you one thing. Promise you will be moved by the way that Cordon and I do things. That's my only promise to you. And if that moves you in a way that you think the Joy Rev could do you some good and be of service to you, fucking A, do it. Sign up. If not, move on through. We hope you got a good, a good week of lessons from us. And
bye Felicia us.
Bye Felicia us. All right, man. I love it. We're going to move on to the big three.
The big three from the Launchcast.
Ready?
Oh, God, what is this?
The big three is your top three.
How did you know that I've only slept with 3 people?
That is an absolute lie. I have a nickname for you privately that I'm not going to share here. The big three is your top 3. These are quick, concise. We're not going to go into the vortex here. Okay. Is there a name for a bro vortex? A brotex?
Brotex.
Brotex.
I think that's what we've both worn at times on stage.
Brotex, yeah.
The man spandex. I wore that too, man.
So big three, top 3. I'm gonna rattle off a few things. I want your top 3 for each. Ready?
Okay.
Top 3 professional moments. Oh, these are tough.
Holy crap. The Speakers Who Dare today. Number 3. Number 2. The Joy Revolution. The first one. Number 1, and it doesn't have anything to do with the amount of money that I made, but the fact that people had said that this was something that was not going to happen for over 20 years at an institution. But I wanted to create a zone of joy at the institution that I worked for. And specifically, I wanted to do it in a residence hall. And the residence director was like, no fucking way. And I remember coming back and I was like, it was like, you know, that moment about with a check, like a grant check. And then like in Goodwill Hunting where he's like, how about them apples, motherfucker?
How do you like them apples?
And it wasn't like to show him up, but it was to it was proof that we do not operate on stepwise timelines. When we want to accelerate, we can accelerate. Jazz, I just saw you like this, and she's a great example of what it means to accelerate. Someone who was given a prognosis of a certain amount of time, and the last time I saw her, she was fucking on a spin bike after brain surgery. We don't have to put up with the timelines that people give us. We don't have to find our happiness when we retire, like Bismarck said, and we can find that now, and we can find it in the paradigm shift. So that's a 3. Sorry.
I want to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
Jazz was on a spin bike, and you were really excited about it. She was not fucking on a spin bike, which is how it sounded when you said it. So sorry, Jazz.
She was on a spin bike. Yeah.
She was on a spin bike, fucking on a spin bike.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Top 3. This is a good one because I'm a fan of your vocabulary, and I say this for a very specific reason. Top 3 words surrounding the concept of joy. Top 3 single words surrounding the concept of joy.
Oh, shit. Okay, so I'm going to put a lot of hyphens in here.
Of course.
So number 3 is post-traumatic growth. Do I have to explain?
Nope.
Okay. Number 2, singularity. Number 1, embodiment.
Okay. And if you want an explanation, everybody, if you want an explanation, you can jump into the first week of the Joy Rev on that.
Oh, now you're just teasing them.
I am
Just get
teasing
in the
them.
damn thing so we can talk.
Ready? Top
Yeah.
3. Top 3 moments. I don't mean events. I'm top 3 singular moments in your public speaking. Singular moments in your public speaking.
How do you define public? Like paid? In front of an audience of strangers?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. TEDx Farmingdale was number 3, with a close number 4 being TEDx Ocala. Wow, that was both really great events. So number 2 is the University of Florida in 1990 something. And for those who were in the audience, and there was quite a few people, you guys know what I did. Number 1 is a spoiler, not a prediction. Speaking at the International Positive Psychology Association's World Summit without the PhD. Invitation.
Get at me. Get at me.
It's not a prediction, it's a spoiler.
All right. Next one. Top 3. Now, only if this is okay with you. Top 3 moments with pop that pop out.
Yeah. So number 3 was when I was in high school, and he took me out for a drive, and he was like, "You want to get some pizza?" That's how he says pizza, pizza. I was like, "Yeah." So he drives me out, and he stops the car, and he goes, "Before we go in for pizza, there's 3 things I want to tell you, or 2 things that I want to tell you." And it's very Eddie Guerrero-like, if you know that wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "Just don't do it, okay?" And as basic as it sounds, it's sometimes hard as fuck. Especially to myself. Like being in denial sometimes, you know? Man. Number 2 was watching him dance with my sister at her wedding. And number 1 was watching when I when I introduced him to my son.
Thank you for sharing that. I just know, I know how important he is, and I just wanted to acknowledge that during this interview because, you know, these things that are important to us, they're all a part of who we are. They're a part of what makes us the leaders that we are. And forget about just leaders. I know that I always spin everything back to leadership here, but makes us just the humans that we are. You know what I mean? These relationships, these loving relationships, these whether they're loving relationships, bad relationships, you know, relationships that that we need to learn from at a certain point in our lives and grow from. These are all a part of what make us who we are. And we can sometimes look at these relationships in real time and see the joy in them. And we can sometimes look at them and see the pain in them. And sometimes they're one and the same, the joy and the pain. You know, for those that have heard that song, Joy and
Sunshine
Pain. And rain.
Keep
Keep it going now.
joy and pain.
And so, yeah, so thank you for sharing that with me, man. It's, you know, it means a lot that you would be that honest in this.
I was close to tapping out on that one.
And I'll end your pain.
No, you don't have to.
No.
That's not pain. Those are tears of joy, man. That's
Yeah.
celebration.
Yeah. That's where I want to stop though. With that. Okay. So, I want to real quick. We always do our moment. Whether you call it the moment of inspiration, we used to call it that. I now call it the spark moment of the week. Spark moments, we didn't get into it too much during this show today, but those that listen to the Launchcast, spark moments are those moments in life, those pivotal moments that we look at these moments and they are moments that whether good or bad, they led us down a certain path in our lives. And so those spark moments are what dictate what our lives eventually start looking like. They dictate our leadership. They dictate the decisions that we make. And so this, I always call this part of the show the spark moment of the week because it's something where I want to share something that has either moved me during the interview, something that has moved me outside of the interview. It used to be where I was, when I called it the inspirational moment of the week, where I would take a piece of a famous speech that was made by a public speaker. Our first one ever was by Jimmy Valvano, one of my heroes, from that famous ESPY speech, the Don't Give Up, Don't Ever Give Up speech. And so I wanted to model it after that, but I found some more inspiration through these interviews where I wanted to expand it to the spark moment. And so with the spark moment, I want to actually just read a line, two separate lines, two separate paragraphs from a song. Okay. And this song is a song that Marc had trusted me enough to send to me. And I'm not going to play any recordings. I just want to read two separate paragraphs from it. The song called I Am the Universe that he wrote many, many years ago that sort of full circle came around recently because I know we didn't talk about it much, but I'll give the brief description. Speakers Who Dare 2020, Marc was part of the 2019 class, the inaugural class. They brought him back for year 2. They had to pivot a few times because of the coronavirus stuff going on. And so instead of
pivot, evolve, baby.
Evolve, yeah. And so instead of a live stage like we had last year, instead of a live stream that was the first evolution, they created the Speakers Who Dare movie, which live streamed today. Everybody filmed their own talks. Trisha Brooke put it together so thoughtfully into a movie, and we watched it all today, and it was so incredible. I was lucky enough to help give Marc a little bit of advice when he reached out to me last week. And so his talk was on panarchy. And if you don't understand that, look it up, listen to Marc's talk, buy that live stream from Speakers Who Dare. There you go. And this song that he wrote so many years ago became such a huge moment within this talk. I don't want to give it away. The only thing I'm going to talk about right now is you all know what Marc looked like a week ago, and you see what Marc looks like now, and this talk had a lot to do with it. Get that live stream, speakerswhodare.com. I'm sure the links are up there. And check out this talk. I'm sure it'll be available in a few weeks anyway on YouTube. But there's a really major part of this talk where he actually goes back to this song. And so 2 paragraphs I want to read. One is in direct relation to what we spoke about before. So I'm talking to you, Nikki Bruno. I'm talking to everybody that was involved in the conversation about the haters that come out. It says, along the way, I took a look in the mirror. It was unrecognized what was going on inside my head. And I'd self-medicate and I made enemies. But yet what's left of me is love for you, love for you. So take that for what you will. But when you look at those moments in life, those haters, how you're going to deal with it, think about that. Because if you walk away from those situations, no matter how you treated somebody, and of course, life is all about how you treat people, what's left of me is love for you, love for you. That's kind of how I read that. You know, I'm sure you had it in a totally different way when you wrote it. We'll get into that another day. The second part I want to read, and this is a great way to end this, is I am not my accomplishments, nor am I my failures. I am gloriously unique with a worth so infinite. I am the universe. Great way to end this. This is part of my mantra. Part of my mantra. It's you are not defined by what you've done. You are not defined by the mistakes that you've made. But I'll throw something in there. But you must learn from them.
Yep.
Guys, let me do this the right way. To quote my hero, Howard Stern, you've said it all. You've said it all. I threw out the paper. You know what that means. I've seen your movie.
You've seen the movie.
You've said it all. Marc Cordon, George Andriopoulos, thank you, my friend, for being here. An honor to have you on the show, and a true honor.
It's a true honor to be your friend, buddy. Let's tear some shit up tomorrow.
Let's tear it up. Joy Revolution begins tomorrow.
Yeah.
Have a good night, guys.
Launch sequence terminated.
Into the black hole.
Thanks for listening to the Launchcast today. Please make sure to subscribe to this feed wherever podcasts are available. Follow me, George Andriopoulos, at Launchpad CEO on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And make sure to visit our website, guys, thelaunchcast.com. Looking forward to the next episode. See you soon, guys.